We're supposed to get our minerals from our food and our water, and we don't get our minerals anymore from those sources. The farmland is farmed out of minerals, and you don't see farmers, plowing in the 72 minerals that you get in sea salt, for example. And the water supply, it's become so contaminated. Any body of water in the world you can test these days and find drugs, prescription drugs, heavy metals, plastics. So our water has to be filtered. It's filtered at the main plants. We filter it at our tap. So there are no minerals in our water anymore. So I think that's why I get very involved with minerals, besides the fact that I was so severely magnesium deficient.
Well, Dr. Carolyn Dean, welcome back to Your Body's Way podcast for the second time. This is such an honor to have you back and to talk about magnesium. Hopefully we'll get to talk about magnesium again, because our last episode together was fabulous, and it got so much good feedback. Today we're going to be talking about women's health. In particular, I wanted to ask you about the stage that women go through from, let's say, late 30s, 40s, 50s. So that kind of phase in a woman's life where you can call it peri-menopause, which is like a newly recognized term. And it's something that you dive into in one of your books that you've written about women's health, called Total Body Reset for Women. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into it. But first of all, how are things over there in Hawaii? I know the sun is blazing over there. I'm so jealous. It's cloudy and horrible here in Cayman.
Yes, it's amazing in Hawaii. We don't have a so-called rainy season like most tropical places. I guess we're not really tropical. We're at the 33rd parallel geographically. So we're very blessed. The trade winds keep the humidity away, and in certain parts of the island up country, it can be 70 degrees, and down here where I am, it's more like 80 degrees. So there are gradations throughout. There are times when I've gone up to the top of Mount Haleakala early in the morning to see the sunrise, and there'll be frost on the ground. Once a year, there'll be snow up there because it's, 10,000 feet high. So we're an amazing ecosystem. We have it all.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, I have to say, Dr. Carolyn, so I've been using your supplements before we dive into women's health, because it's a big topic, but I've got your supplements here. So I've got your Remag, your magnesium supplement. I've got your zinc supplement, your electrolyte supplement, and I've also got your magnesium lotion. And I have to say, I've been using them and I absolutely love them. I don't know, I just feel like they're making a positive impact. I just feel like I feel nourished, and I feel like I just feel brighter. I don't know how else to describe it, but I just feel like I'm in a good place in my life, and I just feel like the supplements are just kind of helping along with that. So
Well, because we all know how important minerals are, not just magnesium, but all the minerals. And we'll talk more about the minerals because they come in really handy, for example, for the thyroid. And when you have minerals in balance, then your electrolyte system works, your electricity in your body works. I mean, our body is electric. We do an electrocardiogram to check our heart function. We do an electroencephalogram to check brain function. So it is about being electric. We're supposed to get our minerals from our food and our water, and we don't get our minerals anymore from those sources. The farmland is farmed out of minerals, and you don't see farmers plowing in the 72 minerals that you get in sea salt, for example. You really don't see mineral replacement in agriculture, even in organic agriculture. And the water supply, it's become so contaminated. any body of water in the world, you can test these days and find drugs, prescription drugs, heavy metals, plastics. So our water has to be filtered. It's filtered at the main plants. We filter it at our tap. So there are no minerals in our water anymore. So I think that's why I get very involved with minerals, besides the fact that I was so severely magnesium deficient. But then I had the added blessing of working with a chemist where we make stabilized ions of the minerals in picometer size so that the body cells accept them. When you take mineral compounds, you can't get those compounds into a cell. They're too big. And the body depends on the minerals. So what it will do with the compound is allow it in a fluid environment, the blood, to disassociate into its two parts just for a flash. And in that flash, we get some absorption into the cells. But what we've been able to do is make these minerals stable in their ionic form so that they can be absorbed anytime. So that's why you have full absorption, even at the low potency. I mean, people will look at my multiple mineral and say, well, gee, there's not much in here. But every bit of what's in the electrolyte formula is going to be absorbed. So it's like blessings that keep on giving.
Yeah, because like the magnesium, for example, and the electrolyte supplements that you have, like they're just tiny doses. Like the recommendation is tiny, so it's like half a teaspoon for, well, quarter teaspoon for the magnesium and half a teaspoon for the minerals, the electrolytes, and it's that they do feel tiny when you put them in. You're like, oh, at first I was like, well, what's this gonna do? But then it works. Like it feels really good. And I have to say, another part of your protocol that I absolutely love is adding salt to my water, and I do it every day now. Do you like this brand, Celtic sea salt?
What I do is Tamara's rotate different things. So Himalayan and Celtic are the two major ones.
Yeah.
But what I try to say to people is make sure the sea salt has some color to it.
Yes, it's
Because
gray.
exactly. Because if it's pure white, it means it's been refined, and you're just kind of being ripped off because everybody's into sea salt now. So every bit of water I drink, I'll have sea salt in it. And it's the hydration factor that's so important. If we're walking around and our skin, when we do this test, you pull your skin up and it's supposed to plop down immediately. If your skin stays standing for, a fraction of a second, see, mine's not jumping down fast enough. So I need more water.
Yeah.
It's a really good dehydration, what is it? FAQ or hack. It's a dehydration hack. And the other hack, I don't know. I mean, this is important for the women's health because we tend to get inflamed. So my inflammation hack is if you're able to curl the tops of your fingers down to touch your palm, and it feels okay, it's not tight, or you don't have sausage fingers or you can't even pull them down.
This feels uncomfortable.
Well, if it feels uncomfortable, then you're a bit inflamed.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. But I mean,
And
it feels a little bit uncomfortable in my knuckles, like not my knuckles, but just the bend of my fingers.
Sometimes, when you wake up in the morning, say after a heavy meal or dessert or some bread, then do this test and you'll start to test what foods cause some inflammation. I went through this when I got addicted to an organic snack. And oh my gosh, this is so delicious. And then I did, doing my test, and oh my gosh, my fingers are getting tight. So I turned the bag around and looked at the label, and sure enough, it had omega-6 refined vegetable oil in it.
Right.
sunflower, safflower, soy oil, even corn oil. But we're really we in the nutritional community are really focused on telling people about the dangers of too much of this vegetable oil. It's used in everything,
Hmm.
sunflower and safflower, and it can say organic, but it still is high in omega-6 fatty acids, which are pro-inflammatory. We need a certain amount,
Yep.
but we've really overdone it, and we've underdone the omega-3 fatty acids. If I guess if if you have a high amount of omega-6, you could take more omega-3, but then you'd be burping all day. And what I say about the omega-3s, and I went forward with my findings on this with my formula, instead of using omega-3 fish oil from fish liver, I use omega-3 from algae.
Mm.
Now, the fish get their ability to make the omega-3s from eating algae. So I start with the algae because that can be clean. Whereas with fish, they're imbibing, ingesting, swimming through the toxic water that we've made in our world.
Mm.
And they've got toxic livers. Fish have toxic livers. They talk about wild caught and it's that. No, I mean the ocean up in the Arctic is getting dispersed through the rest of the world. You can't say, oh, this part of the ocean is cleaner than that part. And what happens with omega-3 fish oils is there's some plant over in Europe where all the fish livers go, and they're refined through a number of processes to clean the fish oil to put it into capsules. What are they doing in that refining process? So we've got ultra processed fish oils that we're saying, oh, this is what you need for your health. Now, I've never been able to take omega-3 fish oils. They make me burp. So I know I'm not even digesting them. But an omega-3 algae is much easier on the digestive system.
Wow. Well, I mean, this is a reason for people to take a look at your supplements because I think they're absolutely great. But let's dive into women, into women's health and that stage in a woman's life, let's say late 30s, 40s, 50s. There's
Mm.
a term that you bring up in your book that I want to dive into and I want to start with. And actually, in my questions, is the title because I think it's so good. You call this phase, possibly a woman could encounter something called total body meltdown. And that's a term that you gave to it. And if I correct me if I'm wrong, but when you first started using it, you felt it was a bit rude to use. You're just like, oh, it's a bit dramatic for these women. Like maybe I shouldn't be using it. But actually, it was hitting the spot with all of your patients. You're just like, oh, maybe I should start using this term like properly. And I think it's a great term because it describes how women feel when they reach this phase. It's really interesting because in the book, you basically lay out really clearly how easy it is for a woman throughout her life to lose minerals and to lose nutrients. It's so easy. And during this phase, let's say the perimenopausal phase, at that time, she's possibly had children and she's working possibly, and maybe her parents are aging, and like there's so much going on. So it's so important that we dive into this conversation and how women can actually fix this naturally. So the term total body meltdown, Dr. Carolyn, can you explain this term and what are the typical symptoms that a woman should look out for?
You laid it out quite perfectly, Tamara, because in our 40s, we do tend to have taken it all on. We're professionals. Most of us want to have children. I didn't really want to have biological children. I had foster children, so I filled my little gap with that. And each, professionally, there are stresses. Having children, there are body stresses. it really takes a lot out of the thyroid, for example. Every pregnancy that a woman has, the thyroid is diminished, and we're not doing enough to support it. The adrenal glands are affected. When you have children, you're up at all hours, you're not getting your sleep, your adrenal glands have to pump out that bit of adrenaline that allows you to get out of bed and open your eyes and do what you have to do in the middle of the night. So there are all these levels of stress. And I guess you could say in our current culture, when you don't have the grandparents living with you to take care of to help you take care of the children. I mean, young couples are doing it all on their own. And I think that's why there are less children being born, or maybe a couple will only have one or two children because they don't have the support structure. That's very evident. Now, in that age group too, it was, maybe about 25 years ago, a herbalist, Susan Weed, W-E-E-D. She's quite a famous
Interesting name for
herbalist.
herbalist.
Yeah. She told me that she was at a conference. This is back in the 90s, and maybe early 90s. And she said, at this conference, a male OBGYN got up and gave a talk, and he started introducing this new term, peri-menopause, because he was seeing patients who were starting to maybe have hot flashes, or their hormones were being erratic. So he thought, well, they're not menopausal, they're perimenopausal. So to me, I thought that was a little bit rude. You know, we're always being diagnosed with something according to our hormones. We have our puberty, and then we're in what is it, childbearing years, and all of a sudden now we're perimenopausal. And the treatment for perimenopause, I mean, a lot of doctors, because of the erratic nature and the symptoms and whatever, started to give the birth control pill back to these women who probably, maybe in their late teens and 20s were taking the pill, then they had some children, and now in their 40s, mid 40s, they're being told to take the pill again. And this constant taking of synthetic hormones is not good for the body. And nobody's really talking about that. So the perimenopause, I don't really talk about it, except, as you say in my book, I sort of call it out a bit. But with the total body meltdown, what I saw was women whose thyroid didn't have the 9 minerals necessary to make thyroid hormones. And that's where my multiple electrolyte formula comes in. 9 of the 12 milligrams in that formula support thyroid hormone production, and that is massive. If your thyroid is under functioning, your metabolism is slowed down.
Yeah.
Your hands and toes are cold, and your energy is low. You can gain weight. All the thyroid symptoms. There are like 200 low thyroid symptoms. So it's a huge problem for mostly women, and I think it's because with childbirth we drain our thyroid in a sense to support the new child. So when the thyroid isn't supported, then it does put a strain on the sex hormones and the adrenal glands, and vice versa. I used to call it a tripod, and you could kick the leg out of one of the tripods, and then the other two, had to recover. But then there's a fourth leg, so I made it into a table with insulin, because we really throw things out of balance when we do eat too much sugar. And when we eat sugar, insulin has to come into play, and insulin will store fat. So we're going to gain weight, not just from the sugar, but from the way insulin works, because we're constantly having to meet the high levels of sugar with some insulin, which then helps push the insulin into cells. And if it can't get into cells to make our energy, in our energy factories in our cells, which is the Krebs cycle, glycolysis cycle, which need a ton of magnesium. So everything is so interrelated, and it kind of drives me a little bit crazy when something like Ozempic comes along, the semaglutide, GLP-1 inhibitors. They are a type of hormone blocker that's blocking something or other that makes us want to eat and cuts off our desire to eat food.
So lessening our nutrients even more on top of everything else.
Exactly. And then this hormone blocker system, it's not just blocking that one little aspect. There's so many other aspects of what the GLP hormones do that we haven't even studied. Yet people are taking this, you're losing weight, every disease that's affected by weight is improved in the short term, but then there's the long term that we aren't even looking at, because the drug manufacturers want to make as much as money as they can in the short term before all the side effects come up. So you can't interfere with Mother Nature in the way that doctors with the quote peri-menopause will, oh, well, just take the birth control pill and that'll settle down your hormones. Well, we don't even have studies to show the damage caused by synthetic hormones taken, 10, 20 years in a woman's life. And, there is a relationship to cancer, but it's not being identified. Yeah. So what I've learned over my 50 years in medicine is to look at what each of these hormone systems requires. So I've already said the thyroid needs 9 minerals to make thyroid hormone. After I worked on the REMAG picometer stabilized ion, I said, hey, I've got to do a multiple mineral. And when I was, I put down the minerals I thought were important from my, at that point, 40 years of research. And 9 of them are required in thyroid hormone production. It's not just iodine, and it's not just selenium. I look at it, and it's not like this at all, like a conveyor belt. It's like, oh, we do this with this mineral, and then it pops here, and then we need that mineral. And it's selenium, boron, molybdenum, manganese, zinc, copper. It's all those basic minerals that we've heard about, but we don't know how they function. They're functioning in hundreds of ways in the body that we don't even know. But one of the ways is the thyroid. When I started testing this formula on myself, of course, and we send out samples and get feedback and all. After 6 weeks, my cold hands and feet, even though I was taking 60 milligrams of Armour thyroid, my hands and feet were warm all of a sudden. Wow. And I was even a little more hyper than I usually am. And I thought, oh, I'm getting too much hormone. Maybe I don't need my Armour thyroid. Now, I did not go to my doctor and say, should I cut my thyroid? I just stopped it, which I don't really recommend. It's good to get your blood tested and make sure that your hormones are becoming more elevated or balanced, and your TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone from your pituitary, it will be high if the brain thinks your thyroid isn't working hard enough. It'll push it, and your TSH will rise. And this gets into blood testing. Medicine will say, well, if your TSH is below 5, you're okay. Some people I used to think, well, below 3 is probably what you want. And other people are saying, no, it should be below 2. So we have no standardization in this realm. Yeah. But if you can go on your symptoms, right now I'm in a cold AC room and my hands are nice and toasty. So we want that for our body. When the thyroid is balanced, then it takes a strain off the adrenal glands, because the adrenals, they activate you, your adrenaline, it keeps you wide awake, and of course it gets overstimulated when you're in a fear situation. So it keeps you going. If your thyroid metabolism is so slow that you feel drained and you have no energy, then you're living on your adrenaline. And that's where people, men and women, get into drinking coffee first thing in the morning. Oh, I have to have my coffee. I can't open my eyes. I mean, there's so many, how many sitcoms, TV shows, even silly novels we read. Everybody starting their day with a coffee. It's a serious addiction. And what you may find as you continue with your magnesium, and if you take more than a quarter teaspoon, I take a teaspoon and a half a day.
I take
I
half.
I yeah, I had taken 4 teaspoons a day to get rid of my heart palpitations, but a teaspoon and a half a day, you get your energy naturally from your body's electrical system working. You don't have to pump it with this drug, which is coffee. So when the thyroid is working properly and metabolizing properly, then the adrenals don't get erratic and keep, flashing out the adrenaline. And then the sex hormones, they it's like the adrenal glands produce a little bit of sex hormone, but it's mostly the ovaries. And they sort of are self-stimulating. You make your estrogen and your progesterone and you go through your cycles. But if we don't have the proper nutrients, then our hormones are affected. Um, for example, when you're on the birth control pill or hormone replacement therapy, or you have estrogen dominance, it pushes down your magnesium. So you're fighting against the lack of energy that you can have with magnesium deficiency, and the tension from magnesium deficiency, the insomnia. So you're fighting all that with these high estrogens. And the another, almost on the opposite end of the spectrum, if your estrogen starts diminishing with menopause, then you build up more calcium in the body, because apparently estrogen is like a minor calcium channel blocker. Now, what's going on there? With menopause, we know that women are subjected more to heart disease. They get heart attacks more in menopause. Well, what's that all about? And one of the things I've written about in the past is when you don't have your monthly period, which is like a detox, you get rid of crap, then the body becomes more toxic because you're not having your monthly. Then you start getting into diseases like men have. But this business about estrogen being a calcium channel blocker, keeping calcium in control, I mean, that is fascinating. And I'm kind of bringing that up in this sort of, well, what's this about? Too much estrogen, and it blocks your magnesium, and then if you don't have estrogen, it's not helping your calcium. And we all know magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker. The complexity is frightening.
Yeah.
And the fact that, the fact that we've got the internet now, where someone will take one of those positions and blow it up.
Hammer it. Yeah.
Blow it up. It's so scary. I get interviewed by a lot of young biohackers. They're mostly guys, and they'll just try anything. And I said, look, I was biohacking before you were even born, because that's what we all do. We try things. But I say I've got the biohacking world, you know, um, I have answered all the biohacking hacks, because what the body needs is the basic nutrients in absorbable forms, and then you let the body figure it out. We cannot possibly cherry pick a bit of research and then make a whole world about it, and act like we've got the answer. The answer is in um, keeping the crap out of your diet. It isn't, the answer is no more, and I've probably said this last time, Tamara, that we've missed our opportunity to make food our medicine, because the food is not healthy enough unless you're growing your own organics and you're putting a lot of minerals in the soil. The soil will become depleted of minerals. So the best we can do with diet is try to stay away from the vegetable oils that are high in omega-6, stay away from sugar as much as we can. Maybe avoid glutens, especially in the Western countries where we've heavily glutenized our wheat, and probably stay away from pasteurized dairy products. If we can get raw dairy, that might be different.
Yeah.
But the sugar is interesting. You'll notice a lot of the vegan, vegetarian diets and diet books. The first chapter is usually desserts, because they know the diet is kind of a bit cardboard tasting unless you put a lot of spices in it. So they start with the desserts.
Yeah.
So you'll get some of these YouTube influencers that, well, I'm on a 16 bananas a day diet and it's just fantastic. And you do the breakdown of the amount of sugar they're taking, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So our diet then, just to keep out the crap, try not to eat the ultra processed foods. Even in restaurants, they're going to be using tap water with chlorine and fluoride. They're going to use the cheapest ingredients. So when you eat out, you come back home, take some extra vitamin C, or take my B vitamin detox formula. You haven't got that yet, but
I haven't
that's
got
pretty
that.
awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'll keep that one in mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well,
over to you.
yeah. Well, I have to say, for women around this kind of age, we often feel like something's not right. So we often feel like different, fatigued, things aren't the same, we don't feel the same, our moods aren't the same, and we have kind of random symptoms. Like it could be, like you said, it could be a whole variation of symptoms. So it could be tiredness, it could be headaches, cold hands, hair falling out, weight gain. And it's confusing for women because we can't go to the doctor for that stuff. Like, we can, but then a lot of the time the doctor won't have an answer. So for example, I've had a range of symptoms since having my 2 kids, and I actually found out that after having 2 children, a woman is very likely at that time to have a low thyroid, like very, very likely. There's something about the second child that just makes it statistically more likely. So, but I went to the doctor and they did the standard tests and they said I was fine. But I was kind of sure I was getting all of the symptoms. So for a woman who is experiencing all of these gnarly symptoms and she is frustrated because she can't get any answers from the doctor, she doesn't know what to do, would you say she should just assume that it's thyroid, adrenals, sex hormones, insulin? Do you think she should assume the table of hormones that you talked about, the 4 legs of the table, are a problem or will be very shortly, and then she should start acting accordingly as soon as possible? Would you say that?
I think that's a brilliant way of stating it. That's the ground that we're in. And when when a woman looks at the list of symptoms for adrenal, quote, exhaustion,
Mm.
or hypothyroid or low sex hormones or, pre-diabetes. It's like they're all similar,
Yeah. And
and
there's
they're
so
all
many
kind
of
of,
them.
yeah, they're wavy. And when you were saying those words, I thought, well, gosh, yeah, that's exactly how I felt for decades before I realized it was most of my symptoms were magnesium deficiency.
Mhm.
And as soon as I started finally getting a non-laxative magnesium, that was my whole thing. I couldn't take magnesium without getting diarrhea, which was just horrible. I lost 10 pounds in a short amount of time because I was trying to treat my magnesium deficiency. So that's where my formula is non-laxative. So you can take enough to treat all your symptoms. And seriously, my fuck. Now I had yeast overgrowth as well, and we should talk about that, Tamara,
Mhm.
because that is huge in women, is yeast overgrowth.
Yes.
And so with my yeast overgrowth, I was avoiding sugar, gluten, and dairy, but I still had sort of foggy head and headaches, neck tension, insomnia, heart palpitations, leg cramps. I mean, I was, you know, on paper a mess, but my adrenals kept me going. I was highly active. I was doing an AIDS study in Manhattan in the early 90s. And that is a stressful situation, doing alternative therapy. And that's just before Fauci forestalled the whole population, the AIDS population, to take AZT, which started killing most of them faster. But anyway, with the stress I was under, I would just run, and I started to get moderate panic attacks.
Mm.
That in Manhattan, you're walking along, a car will come at you, and it's like I would be overreacting. So my adrenal glands
That's
were
definitely an
kind of on
adrenal
the
sign, a
edge,
sign of adrenals being a bit burned out, right?
right?
Yeah.
So and right around that time, I found out about the whole magnesium business because Random House asked me to write a book on magnesium, the Magnesium Miracle, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm the poster child. So, what I would say to women who are feeling all these symptoms, you start with magnesium.
Okay, that's
I
a
mean,
good
you can
tip.
take my magnesium, but I'm going to say that any magnesium is going to help you somewhat. Any magnesium, because the body requires it so heavily.
Can I just ask,
80% of,
can I just ask quickly, what types of magnesium? So there's glycinate, citrate, and all the different types of magnesium. How do we know which one to choose? Because I think a lot of people are crippled by it and then they just don't know what to choose.
right. Well, that's why I say any
Any.
will help, but and I do talk about it probably more. I don't know if I talk about it in my latest magnesium book, the
Hmm.
different types I might do, but you can look at a list, and what everybody knows now is magnesium oxide is mostly a laxative.
Okay.
So that's not going to absorb hardly at all. But if you're constipated, then you can, sort of balance yourself with that. Magnesium citrate, a bit better, but it's still kind of laxative. Magnesium glycinate is less laxative. And then you get the expensive ones, the taurate, threonate, and ortate, but they're more marketing. Uh, they're being marketed for being able to do, oh, you get the taurine, and oh, you get the ortate, and it'll do all these other things. You're looking for magnesium. You're not looking for taurine or even the glycine and the glycinate, because when you look at a 500 milligram compound of any magnesium compound, only about 50 to 75 milligrams is the element magnesium. The
Mm.
rest is the other half of the equation. If you're looking for magnesium, you want magnesium. And So what I did with my magnesium, I have a 300 milligram elemental magnesium stabilized ion in 1 teaspoon dose. And that's got nothing else added to it. So the compounds, I don't know if I can say anything more than that. You can take them and feel a bit better. But if 80% of your body's metabolic functions require magnesium, and you only give it enough for 20 or 30%, you're actually going to think, oh my gosh, well, the rest of the 50% must be something else. Maybe I need this herbal remedy, or you fall victim to a lot of the marketing of the hundreds of supplements that are out there now. And all along, you still have magnesium deficiency. So you start with magnesium and you take enough to get rid of your symptoms. You look at a list of all the magnesium deficiency symptoms. Like I said, if you've got headaches, neck tension, twitching eye, heart palpitations, I have about 100 factors that give you magnesium deficiency. I have 65 disease conditions that can mimic, that can be magnesium deficiency and mimic a disease. I mean, that's horrendous.
Yeah,
You have acid reflux, you have anxiety, you have all those symptoms. But
and then you
anyway,
get put on and then you get put on drugs for those, and it just takes you on a whole different tangent. But I wanted to say there was something that you said in your book that so obviously women going through this stage in their life, stress is a big thing, and it's stressing out their adrenals. But I love the section where you say take a chill pill, because these days I feel like most women are type A's, even if we're not naturally type A's, we're kind of forced to be type A's, because we're in a world now where we need to push it to get noticed, or to get our products out there, or to get our to climb in work. And I feel like we're being pushed in that direction for sure. And even after having children, we're being pushed to recover quickly. And it's just, we're becoming type A's, we're being pushed in that direction. It's almost like type A's win in this world, in this society. But I love when you say, do you may require 8 to 10 hours of sleep and naps to fully recover. And I think that's the ultimate permission for a woman to be like, I do need that sleep, because when I read that, I was like, I need that. Like, I need 8 to 10 hours sleep. I really do. And I don't want to feel guilty about it anymore. And when I read that, I was like, that is absolutely perfect. But can I ask, what is your recommendation for an active woman? So just say a woman is working, she's got kids, and she's busy, and she's got problems at home and relationship issues, and she's exercising. Do you have any kind of recommendations for an active woman? Does she need to take more magnesium? Does she need to supplement even more? Like, what's your recommendation for someone whose muscles are burning through calories and, she's active?
Talking about the burn rate, you're burning off your magnesium and your other minerals. So it is okay. It's a matter of getting a decent sleep. When you're talking about a woman and you're saying, we're type A's, what it is we're multitasking, we're hyper alert, we know our whole surrounding. I mean, my husband can say, oh, I don't know what to do with this, and I'll walk over and say, do this. And I've never thought of his problem before. He's been, dealing with it for half an hour. Oh, I don't know what to do. He says, what'll I do with this? And I say, do this. Because it's like we do that constantly, and we're hardly appreciated for it, and we don't even appreciate it in
Right.
ourselves.
We punish ourselves when
And
we're not like that, and we're not go, go, go.
It's at the expense of our adrenal glands, because the hyper alertness, it's like we're not meditating. We haven't got our eyes closed. Our eyes are wide open and constantly surveilling our exterior. to help protect our children for one thing, and our spouse. We know we have to take care of our spouse. They don't know what to do. They're not multitasking. So we are constantly on guard. And for that, we need our B vitamins and our vitamin C and our sodium. And all those three support our adrenal gland. So we've supported our thyroid with our multiple mineral. And if you could say the name, I'm not allowed to say the name of my products. I can't, the FDA won't let me say that my products can help people. So you could tell people the name of the multiple mineral. And so you've got your magnesium, the multiple mineral, and then I have a formula with methylated and food-based B vitamins and methionine and taurine. So there's your taurine that, you don't have to take the magnesium taurate. Taurine is important for the heart, and it also is important for bile production, for keeping bile from sludging, and it does a ton of other things. But methionine, it's a precursor to glutathione. That's your supreme antioxidant. And you can't take glutathione by mouth. It gets broken down by the liver, and it's just not useful when it's broken down. So you have to give precursors. And then giving precursors as well for all of your hormones and everything in the body is the way to give the building blocks so the body can take care of things. So you've got all the B vitamins that help your nervous system. They work in the detoxification pathways of the liver, and they're important for, as I said, for the adrenal glands. Vitamin C is highest in the adrenals and in your eyes. So you need vitamin C. Vitamin C also is antagonistic to, and vice versa, to sugar. Sugar and ascorbic acid are almost an identical molecule. So what happens when you eat a lot of sugar? It will go in and sort of block vitamin C receptors. So if you, anytime with our foster kids, when we had the big holiday parties, we'd have a sugar table, but then right beside it, we'd have a vitamin C table. So that when you eat sugar, you take some extra vitamin C as the antidote.
So does that go to say that a woman should, in this stage, turn to a low carb approach?
Yes. It's true, because you don't want to gain the weight, so you don't want to keep the insulin activated, because insulin is constantly making fat cells. And you want your immune system to be strong, so you want your vitamin C to be the antioxidant to fight infection. So your sugar is just going to knock out your vitamin C. And then the salt, the sodium part of the equation. When people have low blood pressure, that's where you're lying down, you get up quickly and you get dizzy. That's sort of low adrenal, low blood pressure. And that's where you need your hydration and your salt. Hydration is you take your body weight in pounds, cut that in half, drink that many ounces of water a day, and in each liter, or in my case, I've got a 16-ounce glasses that I use. I'll put a quarter teaspoon in that glass.
So how many quarter teaspoons do you have in a day? Because you do it like once. I do like one dose, but maybe I should do like more than that.
3 or 4. Because a quarter teaspoon 4 times, that's only a teaspoon of sea salt. And gosh, I think the RDA for salt is something like 2,700 milligrams. It's a good amount of salt that we need. But, doctors have gotten very lazy about things like blood pressure. They just say, oh, stop salt and don't drink so much, and your blood pressure will be lower. No, you're dehydrating your tissues, you're dehydrating your cells, you're not giving your body enough water at the cellular level to perform metabolic functions. It's the worst advice ever to
It's,
stop salt.
yeah, because isn't it true that you can drink as much water as you want, but if you're not taking in the right amount of salt with it, then it won't be absorbed. Is that right?
Through the other end, but in the
Mm.
meantime, it will dilute your other
Mm.
nutrients, and it will it can give you tissue edema,
Mm.
fluid retention in your ankles and your hands. So, I mean, water to get into the cells needs to have minerals in the cells to pull the water in. So that's where the balance is, the osmotic factor of a high concentration of minerals in your cells pulls in the water, and then they get to work.
Really interesting. And it makes me, I've got terrible low blood pressure. Like every time I get up, like my husband mentions it all the time, I'm dizzy. I need to stop for a second and then I carry on. Sometimes I faint, like once in a blue moon, I'll faint.
Mm.
So I mean I'm taking salts, but I'm starting to think maybe I need to be taking more because I do drink quite a lot of water in the day, but maybe it's just not getting absorbed as much as it should do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and increase your magnesium and your multiple
Mm.
minerals. You know, you might need up to a teaspoon and a half, 2 teaspoons a day of the magnesium, and 1.5 teaspoons of the multiple
When
minerals.
you say multiple minerals, it's not this one. Is it this one?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
one.
Yeah. Okay. What about the yeast connection? Because you did mention yeast and you know that you're kind of like a yeast
Mhm.
specialist. Like we should do an episode on yeast as well, because you could talk about it for
Yeah.
hours, I'm sure. But what can you
Yeah, that would
say about
be a
yeast?
good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so briefly, okay, estrogen promotes yeast overgrowth. Yeast grow naturally in the large intestine. They're like a cousin to mold. Mold in the forest will help to, mold and fungus in the forest will break down dead and dying, trees and plants. Well, yeast in our large intestine helps to break down whatever food, missed our small intestine, missed being absorbed. So the large intestine, the yeast will break that down, and they're in the budding stage in the large intestine. When you take an antibiotic, you kill off good and bad bacteria. So you leave kind of a vacuum in the small intestine, and the yeast will grow up into the small intestine. And especially if you're on a high sugar diet. I grew up, I mean, I every night I would go and get a plate of ice cream
Oh
and a
God, it's
can
sugar
of
and flour and everything. Yeah.
yeah, oh my gosh. So I created my yeast early on, so I know all about it. Um, so the sugar will feed the yeast. The antibiotics, which we all grew up on, will kill off the good bacteria. So yeast are in your small intestine, causing gas and irritation and leaky gut. The yeast, when they migrate, will go into a thread-like stage called a mycelia, and the mycelia poke holes in the small intestine, and then you'll get absorption of the 78 different yeast toxins that can be, causing brain fog. There's zymogen is one of them that causes psoriasis-like symptoms. There's acetaldehyde that is supposed to be a byproduct of alcohol, but all of a sudden yeast is producing alcohol and acetaldehydes, which makes people feel they're drunk. There have been people who've measured on what is a breathalyzer and a breath analyzer for alcohol. They've measured positive and haven't taken a drink because they're so overloaded with yeast. So it creates a lot of toxins, the whole leaky gut, and it's been totally avoided by allopathic medicine and even alternative medicine because there's no, until I came up with a formula, that it was difficult to treat because you had to tell people avoid all these foods, take these antifungals, rotate them because the body gets used to them and all the rest of it. But what I did is I work with a gentle antifungal that's been used in childhood diarrhea, Saccharomyces boulardii, and a humic fulvic pro and prebiotic, and a silver. So I'm working with a picometer stabilized ion of silver. It's not a colloidal silver. I don't really, that's a colloidal, that's a silver compound, and I'm not keen on compounds. They can become a little bit toxic. But silver, I mean, that was the original antibiotic in medicine. They still have to use silver in extreme burn patients to prevent infection because it's the safest antibiotic. But they've relegated it to, the alternative world because it doesn't make any money for the drug companies. So yeast, yes, we can, toxins will block thyroid hormone function. It will block the other hormones. It'll cross-react with so many tissues in the body. So it's very important to control yeast.
And you say, brain fog and feeling like you're drunk, and what else can someone look out for?
A lot of I think the IBS that people have, irritable bowel syndrome, that can be yeast overgrowth. Any sort of rash. What we found after our customers would take our magnesium for 2 or 3 months, and they'd say, "Oh, I was feeling great and everything, top of the world, and then now I've got this really strange rash. What's going on?" And we say, "Bingo, you're starting to detoxify your yeast." So the yeast toxins are coming out on the skin. So the magnesium is helping the immune system identify what needs to be done. So we just add our yeast protocol, and then people say, "Okay, great, thank you." So it's yeah, I mean, how many people will tell you, "I get this weird rash, or I've got a coated tongue, or I've got itchy ears, or
Like
I've got
UTIs,
the
thrush.
itchy eyes."
Yeah.
Yeah, thrush and vaginitis, and even fungal infections of the feet can be associated with yeast overgrowth.
Dandruff.
And dandruff. Yes, yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
if someone is detoxifying from their yeast, just say they're going low carb and they're taking your supplements, for example, and they're getting rashes, and that what other signs can you expect if your yeast is dying and it's you're doing a good thing? How else do you know you're on the right track?
Well, I try to make sure that people have the grounding in their magnesium and their multiple vitamins and their that B complex with the amino acids, so that the body is able to detoxify and not have the die-off reaction. Even the picometer silver, it's very good for stopping what we call a Herxheimer reaction. Because I've dealt with people who are bedridden with yeast overgrowth. Their symptoms are just so pervasive. So I've written sections or blogs, too toxic to detox. And that's where we don't tell people to dive in and for example, do a liver detox or even do a bowel detox, or think that they can just treat yeast and not look at the rest of the body. You have to sort of build the body's immune system up before you start purging. I myself, if I do, there's a certain detox that I did recently just to experiment with it, and immediately I got virally. I had a little bit of a cold sore, which I used to get years ago, and I got a little bit of a cough, and oh my gosh, I just manifested a Herxheimer reaction by doing this detox. So, and it's hard for people to figure out. I have a baseline great health, so when something happens, I know why. But so many people, they're out there, "Oh, I have all these symptoms, I should do a liver detox." And then they get worse. Or a doctor may say, well, your hair analysis shows you have all these heavy metals. You should take a DMSA or some sort of EDTA, do a test dose of a chelating agent, and we'll see what you push out. We'll do a urine test and see if you really have all these heavy metals. And people feel worse because they're pushing out these heavy metals from their cells, and it's dumping in the bloodstream, circulating through the body, getting into the brain, and they feel terrible. People are too toxic to detox. People are in total body meltdown. And what they need is to build the body with the right nutrients. Minerals are important for keeping heavy metals at bay. When you have minerals binding to all the mineral receptor sites, they've done studies on magnesium and protein, and they stopped at the point they found 3,700 magnesium receptor sites on human protein. And they go, oh my gosh, well, where are we going with this? But what it meant to me was the cells have mineral receptor sites. If the cells are balanced and complete with their minerals at the receptor site level, then you won't get heavy metals jumping in and taking over. It's when you have mineral deficiencies that the mercury, arsenic, cadmium, beryllium, all these minerals and chemicals, they find a place to reside. So if we have our minerals, we don't produce these heavy metal toxicities. I know in my customer population, we're not having people who tell us, no, I've got these parasites, because if they start getting bowel effects, as I said, you take your Remag, and then, sorry, I said the name of my product.
I'll cut it out.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
You take your magnesium, and your immune system is activated, and then you can work on it, and then you don't have the toxicity buildup, the heavy metal Herxheimer reaction. You let your body deal with the priorities. I mean, what if the priority of the body is not to have heavy metal chelation purge? I mean, when one of my biohacks was I did intravenous chelation on myself, and after about 2 or 3 treatments with EDTA, my knees were aching. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm dragging out all my minerals and I'm not replacing them. Calcium was the main one. When I took some calcium, my knees stopped aching. So to me, it's just so frustrating with, all the allopathic doctors. Oh, I want to do alternatives, and they do it so medically. They'll chelate people. They'll give high dose vitamin D, and really, we just have to be balanced.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know what? Every conversation we have is just so fulfilling, because I always feel just a new found respect for minerals, magnesium, salts. Like it just feels so yummy. Like after we talk, I just think, oh, let me just take some more salt then. It's so lovely to chat to you again. So where can people reach you and find your products? Where's the best place?
The product site is rnareset.com, and the educational website with my radio show, blogs, webinars, and everything is drcarolyndean.com.
Okay.
And the latest book,
Yes.
this is the one
Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, it's shorter, it's to the point. Magnesium, the missing link to total health. You can Kindle it. I think it's like $4.99. You can print on demand, and it's $9.99. So I tried to keep the cost down. It's very important that people understand the place for magnesium and minerals in our body, and know that it doesn't have to be complex. If take my 50 years of research and experience, and run with it, because I've just got a handful of things that I tell people to do, and when you do it, you feel so much better that you don't have to do all the expensive testing or treatments or get distracted by things that just don't work, because what you take in, the body should be able to absorb.
Well, that was great, and I can certainly vouch for that as well. You know, doing the supplementation, it's just been so helpful for me as well. So thank you so much, and I'm sure everyone's going to love this episode because it's, you know, it's so full of information. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Aloha.